Hello, hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm flying solo tonight. I've been gone for about a week and a half now between myself and my father having to go to the hospital for different medical conditions. And now that I'm finally able to come back, neither of my co-hosts are able to be here. So at least we have a show, though. So tonight it is... mostly reviews. We're trying to get caught up on reviews that I missed last week and earlier this week. And we have a couple of unboxings as well from the crowdfunding scene. So let's go ahead and get started with our first review of the evening. That's Absolute Martian Manhunter number 6. $4.99. Publisher DC Comics. Writer Dennis Camp. Artist Javier Rodriguez, lettering by Hassan Asmani Al-How, cover artist by Rodriguez, again shown, also covers by Amy Reeder, Mitch Gerard, Riley Bosmo, and Mark Chiarello. Editors were Sabrina Fletch and Andrea Shea, and the genre is science fiction superhero. It was released on August 25th, 2025. What it's about. Concluding this story arc, ideas explode like atom bombs and minds melt and colors clash in the darkness behind the eyes of every person on the planet. It's the Green Martian versus White Martian, and John Jones versus madness itself as he fights to save his family and the world. What did I think? Well, this issue and the overall 6-issue story arc as a whole was extremely well executed and deals with multiple themes and social explorations that I suppose, because of the very nature of the question being posed, why do people do what they do and the logic behind it and how our subconscious and our conscious minds can be manipulated by outside forces, is a very tough theme for some of today's audiences, given how our own country is divided very much like that of the green and white Martians manipulations. If Trump and the Republifucks, who have given that party such a bad reputation, real Republicans might have to form a new party altogether to be were revealed to be the White Martians, who had taken over our political scene, I wouldn't be surprised. But that's sort of the beauty of the story, is John Jones has to rise above his human nature and overcome the influence and reconcile himself and the Martian, and use that as the means to reconcile himself with his family as well. And there was always a sense to me that John Jones was actually dead and that the Martian had taken over his body, but was like also around separate outside in a way, because we couldn't see the Martian unless we saw the Martian. But apparently John Jones is there, and it's cool. And I think that Camp definitely brings back Jones's humanity and his connection to his family in a way that's not necessarily spiritual or a resurrection so much as an embracing of yourself and your own value and our values to one another. Something that the hate and disdain for other tends to destroy until we inevitably internalize it and have it destroy ourselves from within. Having seen so much negativity directed at Camp on social media during this run of the series, because he said something on social media that somebody didn't like, and you know how it is. I am glad that the series is continuing into an ongoing series. I was concerned that they would cancel it after the first story arc, because this has been a master level story arc. I hope that people who have been passing on it due to the online hate will reconsider this when the story is offered for trade, because this is DC's best series going right now, hands down, in my opinion. I'm going to get 5 stars for the issue and 4 stars for the overall story arc, because there were some bumps in the road along the series, and I did give it a little bit lower score in some of the earlier issues. Like issue 3, I think I gave issue 3 lesser score. So I'm going to give it a 4 overall for the first 6 issues. Okay, our next book is Benjamin number 3 of 3 from Oni Press for $5.99. Writer is Ben H. Winters. Art is Leo Max. Colors by Luca Bertelli. Covers Christian Ward shown. Malachi Ward as well. And lettering by Becca Carey. Editors are Sierra Han and Azat Sayadi. Production by Sarah Rockwell. Genre science fiction, age rating mature, released August 27, 2025. What it's about: Benjamin J. Karp, resurrected science fiction author and all-around self-important shit, is baffled beyond his boisterous brain can handle, and his companion Marcus has had enough. What does any of it matter? Can Benjamin learn the most important lesson of all? The cover kind of just gave the whole series away, I think, but we'll get on with it. Yup, predictable as all get out. Every last freaking page. I was falling asleep, bored. He went to the Grant Morrison route, which I was fearful he would do that from the start, but I was hoping he would do something more unique, I guess, for lack of better words. But he did a nice, called a fumble. Fumble Rooski. The story had so much more potential than what Winters executed. And while the story is okay, it's just middle of the road, and for me, it was really a letdown. Now, assuming that Winters does a sequel for Marcus, because I don't want to give away the spoiler in case you don't know what happens. Essentially, though, the story's not about Ben, it's about Marcus, and it always has been. But anyway, I'm after 3 issues of listening to Benjamin figure, doing his own thing. I'm bored. I don't care if there is a sequel. And this is why I said when we discussed issue number 2 that this would have been better as a straight up graphic novel rather than a split 3-issue miniseries. Why did I say that? Well, the pacing and format would have left more room to explore Marcus's character enough to make me care about Marcus. And the reality is, just like Benjamin doesn't care about anything or anyone but himself, by the time Ben realizes his mistake, the author, who's wrote the story, has forgot to make me care about Marcus as well. So it's kind of it kind of just fell flat. I'm sorry. This final issue gave a 2 out of 5, and the overall series I give it a 3 out of 5. It's just fair middling. The ending just really. It's not like he phoned it in. It's more that he just went into the most obvious direction that he could have, and he could have done something better. Our next book is Escape #1 from Image Comics for $4.99. The publisher is Image Comics. Writer is Rick Remender, with art by Daniel Acuna and lettering by Russ Wooten. The genre is anthropomorphic action adventure. Age rating is teen plus. I know the cover. If you're looking at the cover, doesn't that cover says $3.99? Yes. The cover graphic that was put online says $3.99, but the actual book is $4.99. And I'll show you my copy to prove it here in a second. Here you go. As you can see, it says $4.99. And we're going to take a look at the art on that in just a moment. But as we were saying, Teen Plus released July 20th, 2025. What's it about? Milton Shaw is a battle-hardened bomber pilot flying missions over a war-torn world by a ruthless empire. But when his plane is shot out of the sky, Milton wakes up behind enemy lines in the smoldering ruins of a city that he helped burn. And in less than 24 hours, his own side is going to drop in the big one to finish the job. Injured, unarmed, and being hunted through enemy streets, his only shot at escape comes from the unlikeliest place, a grieving father and son. Civilians shattered by the same fascist regime that rules this land with an iron claw, and also hateful of him because of what he and his comrades on his side have done. Enemies by blood, allies by circumstance, together they'll have to fight their way out before the bomb drops and erases everything and everyone. Set in a brutal, fully painted world of anthropomorphic animals, think Inglourious Basterds meets Black Sad. Escape is a gritty, bullet-riddled journey through war's scorched aftermath. It's about the violence we inflict, the souls we try to save, and the courage it takes to crawl out of the fire. what do I think? I'm surprised that this book hasn't been blowing up the comics internet for the last 2 weeks. I haven't heard a peep about this book, good or bad. And that surprises me tremendously, because why are people not talking about it? Are people just not interested in this concept? Did Remender suddenly stop being marketable? Did Acuna suddenly stop being marketable? I don't get it. The book is exceptional, very well written, and superbly illustrated. Acuna really upped his game on this project, in my opinion. Not that he sloughs off elsewhere, but there's just something special, something more that he's brought to this particular series. It looks like he took a lot of time researching and making costume designs and the weapons tech and other things look right for the historical period. He's captured what Black Sod has going for it, as well as other types of series like Hepcats, but has been able to really push it into the same cloth as, I want to say Hellboy, but it's not really Hellboy. It has that same feel, though, that Mignola does the research. Mignola knows his history and tries to play the characters in sync with the history of what's going on a lot. And that's just really well done here. And if this is, while this is painted, this is also just immaculately detailed artwork. As for Remender, his dialogue is mostly accurate to the historical period as well. He does tend to get a little wordy in juxtaposition to the events taking place. In other words, sometimes the characters are speaking too much in terms of what's happening. They wouldn't have enough time to say it in the events going on. But he isn't spewing diuretic dialogue, at least, which is what Bendis will be doing. So thank God we don't have Bendis on this. I do look forward to the next issue, which is not something you hear me say very often. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5, mostly because it's all set up in the first issue as to what's going on, and it hasn't quite gotten to the punch of the plot, to me, I guess you would say. Well, let's take a look at some of the artwork in this. Each one of the animals, characters, is a different breed of animal. They got a whole crew on a bomber, and he's the lead pilot, the lead character. Mm-hmm. And they've got 2 planes escorting them before they drop a major bomb on the city. And I don't know if it's a cat. I think it's a cat. It's not a raccoon. But it'd be just as easy. It could be a raccoon, but he's got a cat gunner underneath, firing at them, trying to make sure they get themselves not blown out of the sky. Enemy pilots. Just really well done. And when we say painted, we're talking about watercolors over pen and ink illustration, like a lot of European comics are done. And that's another reason why this appeals to me. It has that kind of European comics feel. So overall, really good stuff. I'm very happy that I picked this one up. It's kind of after his plane is crashing, all his buddies have died in the crash. He's got no weapons, and he's being chased by the enemy forces. amongst the wreckage and other things that have been destroyed in the city because they had just bombed the city where he's crashed. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. And that is Green Lantern Dark number 6 of 7 for $4.99 from DC Comics. Writer Tate Brumble, artist Walter Deladera, colorist Giovanna Nero, lettering Tom Napolitano, and cover art by Walter Deladera. Editors are Andrew Marino, Andrea Shea, Ash Padilla. Genre is horror superhero, released August 25th, 2025. Well, it's about sick and playing games with their food. The Dark Witch Demona, that's the one in the orange there, takes to the skies, backed by her army of monstrous beasts, determined to wipe the Green Lantern out of the face of New England once and for all, with a little help from a traitor in Green Lantern's own collective. What did I think? It's a solid penultimate issue, nothing too unexpected, and it seems to be setting up the aftermath of the events of where we know that's the Green Lantern is betrayed and who will take up the mantle of the Lantern and represent hope in other aspects. Is pretty straightforward. However, I don't think there's too much to be revealed by the other Green Lanterns in the final issue. I hope I'm mistaken and that there'll be some unexpected twists in the final issue, but they're kind of telegraphing what they're going to do, and it seems pretty obvious to me what they're going to do and where it's going to end. And so I'm hoping in another month or so, because I think it comes out every 2 months, which is another reason why I give it a little bit lesser score, because I'm just waiting. By the time I get the next issue, I'm kind of like, I would have preferred a better scheduling so that the book was coming out on a regular monthly schedule, but oh well. This one gets a 3 out of 5. It's an average comic, nothing wrong with it, nothing too terrible or anything. So it is what it is. Let's take a quick look at the book. Nice cover. As you can see, the brightness from the cover on the screen is a lot different than the way that the actual print goes, a little bit darker. This has a nice autumny feel to it. It's like, it feels like fall, and I like that. But because it's like, we need something to remind us that the weather needs to get cooler. But here's some of the interior art. And pardon me, Deladera, there we go, not Deladorfa, Deladera. Werther Deladera, there we go. His art is, if you like the stuff he's done over at Boom, then you're going to like this just fine. If you're not a fan of his work, this isn't going to change your mind. So, the coloring is good. Overall, just, let's see how it ends before we really pass final judgment. Let me go ahead and get these books out of my way here. And I need to check my monitor. Not my monitor screen, my heart monitor. For those who don't know, I had a heart episode about a week and a half ago, and I'm wearing a sensor right here. And I'm just trying to make sure that the monitor stays charged because we're recording it for the next few weeks. Okay. Let's see. Our next book is Metal HURLANT, number 1, $29.99 from Humanoids Publishing. Writers and artists various. Editors. Okay, just a second, folks. I need to find out what just happened, because I don't know if you heard, there was a crash downstairs, and I need to make sure my father's all right, because he's had a problem medically himself. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. He's washing pots and pans, and I just need to make sure he's okay because he has a foot injury, and I don't need him falling at 82 years old in the floor. But anyway, where were we? Oh, editors, curators. Jerry Friesen, Fabrice Geiger, Amanda Lucida, and Jake Thomas. Genres, fantasy, science fiction, anthology. Originally released May 16th, 2025. What it's about. The original acclaimed graphic fantasy illustrated magazine that inspired heavy metal in America is back in all its spectacular glory. 292 pages of mayhem. 50 years after the debut of Metal Hurlant in France, this iconic and genre-defining publication is finally coming to the English language in bigger and bolder form than ever before. It's a quarterly anthology published by Humanoids, featuring both classic and new stories by the world's best comics and fantasy illustrators. I'm not going to lie, I feel like this is the real deal here. Not to crap on heavy metal. We're going to talk about heavy metal next week. We were supposed to talk about this together, but I just didn't have time to read it all. But again, not to crap on heavy metal. I love heavy metal. But this has a more worldly feel to it, maybe because it's reprinting some more classic Mobius right out of the gate. And while I have nothing but the utmost respect for A.K. Bilal, Mobius kicks his ass and everybody knows it. And this also has Kaza and Joule and Jodorowsky, and they're also bringing top-level modern American talent from new stories like James Stokoe. So, if I have to criticize anything, I mean, sure, if you're familiar with the classic stuff, I already had them in collection like I have had, or have a lot of it myself, maybe you feel like Hurlant doesn't deliver enough. Maybe there's too much reprint and new content compared to the new American heavy metal. And I suppose that's a possible way to look at things given the difference in price tags, because this is 30 versus half that for the heavy metal. But I have to say that the quality on Hurlant to me is so much higher overall that I don't really want to compare the two against each other like that. I probably will anyway, but it's just a really good book. That having been said, this will need to be able to find some more high European talents of the modern era, because there's only so many reprints of Mobius and Kaza and Joule and Bilal that you can represent before savvy American audiences who already went and got that stuff are going to lose interest. And there's a metric shit ton of creators from Europe that do amazing stuff that American audiences are entirely unfamiliar with. So that's where I think they should be headed in their direction. Both Hurlant and heavy metal, which again we'll talk about heavy metal more next week, have a potential to reinvigorate the American comic scene if retailers and consumers will give them a legitimate chance. But they cannot be the only items on the menu. We need Dark Horse Presents back, only in this kind of format, not just 48 pages. We need a horror genre magazine of this format and not just the willy-nilly shits that Oni and Boom have been putting out. And you guys all know that I've been wanting the Oni EC brand to shine, but I've given up on those books. I'm sorry. The new stuff is just not cutting it. This first issue, though, this is pretty much the best version of Hurlant we could have hoped for, and I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. And we're going to move right into number 2, which came out in August. For me, because I got a mail order subscription, it doesn't actually come out to you guys who buy it in the stores until September 24th. So again, writers and artists are various. Our editors are Jerry Friesen, Fabrice Geiger, Amanda Lucido, and Jake Thomas. This has, again, Mobius and Joule. They brought Valerian creator Jean-Claude Mezieres and Bilal in there, but they also have Mark Waid, Daisuke Ozaka, Matthew Sheehan, and many more. And they're all there to do a cultural theme of space and what that all represents. And this editorial group has curated a supremely well put together collection of stories, all serving the theme of the issue. The editorial selection is just exemplary. Easily the best anthology issue of the year in terms of thematic tone and consistency. Many excellent stories. The art, well, I think it's fine, but maybe people will think it's something of a mixed bag depending on your tastes. Certainly, there's nothing I thought was terrible or that didn't fit well with the rest of the stories. But I do wonder when the book hits the stands to the general fandom, uh, will readers be less interested than me because some of this art is more of a modern computer coloring and modern computer illustration, not AI. You're still working traditionally, so to speak, but you're using the computer for like doing your watercoloring through a computer system layout, or you're doing your actual illustrations through digital illustration on screen rather than on the board. But it is still being drawn by a person. That may make other people feel like the work is lesser somehow. I will be interested in hearing what others think about that. My co-host Chris was supposed to be reading these too, but things happened for him and he wasn't able to get it all read. Plus, he had a last-minute business meeting that he has to handle tonight, so he didn't have time, unfortunately. But I give this a 5-star rating as well. Let's take a quick look at number 2. As you see, very thick book here. Let's see here. I'm trying to read some of the text here. Yes, okay. This is Afif Khaled who did the cover. He did the cover here, but you can see this is all very watercolory, illustrated type work here, and they're on Mars or another planet, and they find out that their whole system that they're going to be putting up for putting colonization is about to get destroyed by like a meteor shower or a collision on the planet. And they have to flee the planet, and the one guy stays behind and leaves a message by staying behind within his parameters for everybody else to figure out, and becomes a symbol. And that was kind of cool. And then they have other interesting type work as well. Again, this is a little more monochromatic, but again, it's that watercolor base, but there's digital components overlaid in this a little bit. But the stories are good. Lettering's different. They have some good articles, interviews, and then of course we have your classic Mobius. It's a small universe. And I'm not going to go through the whole story to get to the gag. It's hilarious at the end. There's just a lot of really cool stuff. Again, another one of those kind of digital painted pieces. It looks nice though. You can tell there's an underdrawing that was done by hand. You can tell that this is either acrylics with digital touch up or at least had a composition underneath it of illustration. And then we have Elgo, who is sort of in the same vein as Mobius, but just, overall good stuff. Very pleased with it. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next book, which is Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, Magic Unleashed, #1 for $4.99 from Archie Comics. Writers are Greg Boltman, Holly G, also known as Holly Golightly, Tanya Del Rio, Dan Parent, George Gladier, and Frank Doyle. Pencilers are Stephen Butler, Holly G, Dan Parent, Bill Gulliher, Stan Goldberg, and Bob Bowling. Inkers are Lily Butler, Jim Amash, Bob Smith, John Diagostino, Rudy Lapek, and Al Nickerson, with colors by Glenn Whitmore and Barry Grossman. Drawing by Jack Morelli and Bill Yoshida, or Yoshida, not Yoshido. Cover is by Dan Parent, with colors by Rosario Tito Pena. The genre is fantasy comedy. They consider it for all ages, and it was released on September 3rd, 2025. What did I think? Or, pardon me, what's it about? Sabrina's greatest foe, the evil witch Mother Striga, is back, and this time she's enlisted the aid of the wicked scientist Mad Doc Doom and his daughter Medusa. Will the powers of science be too much for Sabrina's magic, and who can she turn to for help? 4 stories, past and present, wrapped up in 30 pages of mirthful magical madness from the winsome witch Sabrina. Now, what did I think? Well, I'm not really an Archieverse reader, and I've never really followed this character before, but I wanted to see what Stephen and Lily Butler did on the book, because mainstream comics seem to think that Stephen's style is outdated and don't hire him. And yes, I said that, rolling my eyes at the industry. And I just, I wanted to see what they were up to, because I like a lot of the stuff I see of their work online. I love this cover by Dan Parent, and I think Tito Pena did a great job on the coloring. It has just the right amount of shading and color gradation tones to complement Parent's open line work very well, and yet not take away from what Parent has actually put on a page. So many people over render this stuff, and some people might even feel this is a little bit over rendered, I imagine, but I think it's just really well done overall. As far as the stories go, I thought the story by Boltman and the Butlers was just the right mix of story for a preteen audience, who I feel is who the audience and the character is supposed to be meant for. The other stories are well done also, but I'm probably not going to buy another issue. Well, I do think the execution on this book is very strong. I'm personally not the audience for the character per se. I like it, but if I was reading this as a kid, I would say, yeah, give me more. But as a 53-year-old person, I'm just... but I do highly recommend it for a 12 and under audience. And I think retailers would be strongly advised to market this to your 12 and under audiences in your stores. I give it a 4 out of 5. Let's take a quick look at some of the work in the book. Again, here's the gorgeous cover by Parent and Tito Pena. This is the work by the Butlers. Stephen's pencils with Lily's inks. Sorry about the wind blowing it. Coloring, yeah, I'm not sure who colored. Let me look who colored this. Whitmore did. Yeah, it looks okay. I've seen better colors on Stephen's pencils, though, so I'm a little bit. But overall, just, whoops. Sorry about that. overall pretty good stuff there. I mean, got nothing to complain about. And then this is one of the stories by Bob Bowen and John Yaxtina from the 70s that they reprinted. And you can tell there's a difference from the earlier style, obviously. But it's not, it's still consistent and certainly recognizable. She basically has to put the kibosh on a beach mage that isn't a beach mage. Beach magician, I should say. Because he's like humiliating her on the beach. And then there's another one here by Bill Gulliver and Gilmash. That's a little more modern again, but definitely not the same as the earlier, the first story. That was the most modern. But it has some good stuff going. And they're all generally in the same vein of art style. So there we go on that one. Again, I give that one a 4 out of 5. We also have Vanishing Point number 4 for $4.99 from Mad Cave Studios. Writer is Mark Russell. The artists and colorist for the interior work is Jock. Lettering by Carlos N. Miguel. Cover artist, this is a beautiful cover by Chris Weston. Editor is Mike Martz. Genre science fiction, released August 27th, 2025. What it's about. This series is brainchild of Mark Russell. Vanishing Point is an anthology series of usually of short stories that are part science fiction and part as existential horror, with multiple different rosters of artists taking each different story. There are stories with a twist in which the twist is not the point of the story, but a beginning point from which to ask what it means to be alive. In this particular issue, Proof of Life, the robot is accused of sentience and put on trial. If it's found to be alive, it will be destroyed. But what proves that you're alive more than not wanting to be destroyed? So it's kind of this weird thing going on. And at the same time, it was obvious what the twist was going to be. Again, I love the cover by Chris Weston. I likely would have picked this book just on the cover alone if I hadn't already been following this book. Story was excellent as well. He does some really not, Russell does have nice ideas going on with these one-off short stories each issue. Jock did a really nice job on the art. I was thinking I was going to be let down because Weston didn't do the interiors along with the cover. And, of course, Jock's art is nothing like Weston's, but it does have its own merits, and he does do a very good interpretation of what the script or story was by Russell. Twist of the story, again, was what I expected it to be, but the story is paced it just the right way that when the turn came, it didn't leave me with a sense of boredom or dread that many stories where I have predicted the outcome can leave me with, which is kind of what happened with Benjamin. I knew it was coming, and I was like, give me something, and they didn't. And this one didn't necessarily give me a twist that shocked me, but the way it was paced, I could, and what was happening and how they went about it, I'm like, okay, that works. So I'll give this one a 4 out of 5 as well. Let's take a quick look at the art. Again, let's start with the cover. Again, just absolutely gorgeous stuff. Sorry, it's a little bit. The print size always goes a little bit darker than what you guys see on the screen. So this is what you saw was like a bright orange, is more of a rustic brown cover. Let's take a quick look at some of the artwork. The robot's waiting inside to be interrogated by this this guy, and he's telling him, well, we think you sort of know that you're alive, but if you are, we have to kill you. That's our orders. Yada yada yada. I don't want to give away the twist at the end if you haven't read it and you might be interested. But they explain how even a human, if the human doesn't understand the communications, this woman actually gets a card and then matches a corresponding card to the cards in her filing cabinet, but she doesn't know how to read Chinese, so she's not really understanding and communicating with the person. So that's not sentience, is what they're saying. You're just following orders. You don't have your own will or sense of whatever. And that's part of what makes you alive. Anyway, they order him to kill himself with a gun. And instead he changes it. He's like, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to kill you. What's going to stop me from killing you? Well, the thing is, other than the other few laws of robotics, that you can't really do this. But then, realizing that that's not the right answer either, they play other things into it a little bit. And again, I don't really want to give away the twist. I think most of you have kind of already figured out the twist, but it doesn't really matter. There's a backup story called "It Killed Everyone But Me." It's a preview, number 1 in the back. I didn't really have an interest in this one, but I suspect that, like our host Chris Paul, would like it. So we may revisit this little bit of preview back when Chris is with us. Okay. So those were the reviews for the week. But we did get some stuff in the mail. There were some unboxings. The first one came from overseas in Greece, and it came a little bit damaged, unfortunately. You can kind of see how it got a little bit warped in there. And because my post office guy, it wasn't put in a mailer, cardboard mailer like it should be. It was put more in a bubble wrap envelope only. And my idiot will just shove things into the post box like you wouldn't believe. So unfortunately it did come damaged, and I'm a little bit peeled about it, but that just means I won't buy another copy of this from him until he learns. This is The Wrath Vermilion from Vincent Ray, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I'm going to review it next week. But, I probably would have reviewed it this week if I hadn't been in the hospital, or something, but because I didn't take it with me, obviously. I'm sitting here. But, yeah, I'm mostly just annoyed with how it arrived. The cover gloss looks good, spot gloss on the cover and everything. So hopefully the story inside will keep me interested. We'll see about that next week. The other thing we got was from Bounce House Books. That's Tony McMillan. And if you guys know what that means, let's open it up and find out. Oh, so many things to undo here. Okay. Get the other blade. One type of cutting isn't enough. There we go. Put that up here. Let's see what we got here. Plus, this is a general mailer. And of course, It's upside down from what I was going to show you, but let's see. It's probably stuck to the back. Yeah, it is. There we go. This is Destroying Angel Lumen number 4, the final issue of the storyline. And we will get into reviewing that next week as well. And I would open the bag right now, but he tends to put a lot of tape on the back of this thing. I don't know if I can get it open or not. Let me see. Not only does he put a lot of tape on it, he puts good heavy tape. But the bag usually gets shot. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to open it without cutting it, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut it. I always end up replacing the bag. That's not a bad thing. I mean, you know, it's just a bag, but there we go. Just did a quick glance at it anyway. Sticker. There's your Tony. Now you know who Tony is. That's a cute illustrative photo art thing there. I like that. And you see different monsters. And he's got to fight and stuff. It has a very Sienkiewicz feel to it to me. I mean, it's his own thing, don't get me wrong, but you know, I just feel like there's a Sienkiewicz influence to it. And I mean that in a sincere, complimentary way. So there you go. A little bit more of that. And we'll talk more about the story and how it concludes next week. Those are my two unboxings for the week. And we'll be back tomorrow for our Friday night show. I'll be here anyway. I don't know if Tris will be. Hopefully he will be. He's supposed to be. And of course, John wasn't here this week because he had this theatrical work that he was doing. But hopefully, after this week, he'll be on Thursday anyway. And I think that the actual performance nights are Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. So we'll see. But anyway, tomorrow will be actually, we should talk about what we're going to show and review next week. Next week, we're going to cover Heavy Metal 1 and 2. We're going to cover Eerie, I think that's number 3, Shudder number 24, Complete Web of Horror, hardcover edition, Resident Alien, or Aliens, The Book of Change, Halloween Comic Fest, House of Fear, that's from like 2019, that's one of Chris's books. And of course, we are going to talk about that Destroying Angel Lumen number 4. We're going to back issue number 161. And we'll probably cover that Wrath of Vermilion as well. And then whatever Chris and John have to offer as well. So all those, we got lots coming up, forthcoming, and hopefully next week, barring any more setbacks for myself or my dad. Medically, for those who don't know, I had a heart episode. And then my father has a foot problem with cellulitis, and it's just not fun. Anyway, we will see you next week with more reviews. But tomorrow is a Friday night movie night talk, and people have asked me how come I never talk about videos that you can find on YouTube. It's always Tubi or some other thing. So okay. We're going to watch a short documentary, or if not a documentary, maybe a short op-ed piece from the YouTube channel Strange Brain Parts called The Rise and Fall of Kimiko, the comic book company. And we might do a little more from Strange Brain Parts as well. That'll be tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, whether it's me by myself or myself with Chris Hall, my usual co-host, will be here. So hopefully you'll join us. That's all we have for this week. If you want to reach out to me on social media, you can find me on Facebook at Lewis.BrightRaven, on X at LewisBrightRave2. You can see more of my artwork, like you see on the image there, at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You've been watching Quoth Raven, Lewis BrightRaven exclusively on YouTube. And if you have questions, comments, you can email me at quothravenlbr72@gmail.com. Well, respond to you there, try Lewis BrightRaven at yahoo.com. Okay. That's all I got for you tonight, folks. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. Quoth the Raven. Nevermore.